Hey, what is up, mortals? Welcome to part 4 season 3 of What If Deku Had Haki. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, we begin. Shigaraki was furious, as he kept throwing and breaking whatever he could find. He couldn't believe it. His master had been defeated. Not only that, but he was defeated by that same brat and old man that had already foiled his plans. The hand-covered villain could feel his rage rising within him, which in turn led to him breaking even more things. It didn't help that his companions tried to calm him down, for he simply found everything to be annoying in this moment. It wasn't until Spinner walked up and said, "You need to calm down, Shigaraki," while putting his hand on his shoulder, that something changed within the hand-covered villain. Spinner's words had just made things worse, and now it was all boiling over. He could feel how everything that annoyed him made a pressure on his mind. All Might, the silver-haired geezer, the green-haired brat, Stain, Hero Society, even his own companions. It all created a great pressure, until it was released in the form of a violent wave. It shot out and engulfed everything around him, making the world freeze and go completely silent. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished without a trace. Both Spinner and Magna fell unconscious to the ground after being hit by this, while the others were shell-shocked. "What was that?" Mr. Compress shouted, voice trembling with fear. Shigaraki looked at him in annoyance, unaware of what he had just done. He didn't get the chance to do anything, however, before someone unknown entered the room. "That right there is the power of a true king," the new figure said, letting his cold and dull voice ring through the air. Everyone looked towards the figure, only to see a strange man with a bird-like mask on his face. "Who are you?" Shigaraki shouted aggressively, ready to jump the man at any second. The man was unfazed by this, as he calmly answered, "I'm Overhaul. I've been searching for you. I have a proposition for you all, if you're willing to listen." The League looked at the man skeptically, for they didn't know what to make of him. All they could do was listen to what he had to say. "I have an offer for you. Work with me and we'll be able to achieve both our goals. And I can teach you how to use that incredible power of yours," Overhaul said calmly, while pointing his finger towards Shigaraki. The hand-covered villain grew both confused and angry as he said, "What power?" with more malice behind his voice. Overhaul was unaffected by this, as he calmly responded, "You possess an ancient power that only kings could use. A power that could easily crush your foes and help you take the world as your own. Join me, and I'll teach you how to use it." Shigaraki was stunned to hear this. He didn't know if any of it was true, but he liked it. A power that only kings could use, and it could help him destroy his enemies. It is exactly what he wanted. The hand-covered villain smiled before he gave his answer to the mysterious man. Class 1 continued their training, with some learning to use Haki. They barely managed the basics with what little time they had left, but it was enough to prepare them for the provisional license exam. The exam went on smoothly, with everyone except for Katsuki and Todoroki passing. What followed the day after was more training from Rayleigh, before school finally started again. Soon after, the class got a visit from the Big Three, who were there to talk about their work studies. This quickly led to a fight between all of the class and the third-year Mirio Tagata, which was basically a slaughter. Izuku didn't participate in the battle, for both he and the other teachers knew who would win. Everything ended with Tagata telling them that work studies can be really difficult, but it would really pay off. "Too bad that you didn't participate in that mock battle. I would have loved to see you beat All Might's successor," Rayleigh said, wearing his usual smile. He and Izuku were just strolling, taking a break to discuss how hectic things had been recently. "If I had participated, it would have defeated the purpose of the mock battle entirely," the green-haired boy calmly answered, as both he and Rayleigh walked at exactly the same pace. The silver-haired geezer knew what Izuku meant. Tagata wanted to show just how strong he was when compared to them. It wouldn't look good if he lost to Izuku. "I know. I was just babbling. Everything is just changing so fast, and it's keeping us all busy," Rayleigh then said, clearly sounding tired. Izuku just gave him a weird look, before saying, "I've never heard you complain about it. You get to torment more people with your training, now that you're a teacher," with a joking tone. Rayleigh couldn't hold his laughter upon hearing this, for he knew how true it was. Izuku laughed alongside his master without a care in the world, until they were interrupted. It wasn't anyone else who interrupted them. It was Rayleigh himself. The silver-haired geezer suddenly began to violently cough without end, up to the point that he fell to his knees. Izuku looked worriedly at his master, until he shouted, "Rayleigh, are you okay?" With a panicked voice, the silver-haired geezer stopped coughing, before he said, "Yeah, I'm fine," with a voice that was clearly pained. while trying to hide away the hand he used to cover his mouth. Izuku saw this and quickly snatched hold of his master's hand, only to be horrified by what he saw. Rayleigh's hand was covered in blood that he had coughed up. The green-haired boy looked at his master with worry, as he said, "No, you're not fine. I've known you for more than 10 years, and I've never seen you cough like that. Not only that, but you coughed up blood." With an almost angry voice, Rayleigh looked away, trying to hide his expression. Izuku noticed this, and immediately knew that his master wouldn't tell him willingly. "What did the doctors tell you?" the green-haired boy asked, almost getting more irritated. Rayleigh realized that he wasn't getting out of this, as he looked towards his student and said, "I took a lot of damage from All For One, and my age isn't making things better. They told me that I don't have much time left." With a pained voice, Izuku began to tremble upon hearing this. He knew that it would be bad, but not this bad. "How long do you have left?" Izuku then asked, sounding emotional as he did. Rayleigh was silent at first, as if he didn't want to answer that question, but he then took a breath and said, "Less than 3 years. I'll be lucky to see you graduate." With a voice that was more emotional than ever, Izuku immediately felt his world crumble around him. Rayleigh wasn't just sick, he was going to die soon. He wouldn't live to see him become a hero. It was at that moment that Izuku realized something else. Rayleigh didn't become a teacher so that he could help train the next generation. He did it so that he could spend more time with Izuku before passing on. The green-haired boy felt his body trembling, fighting back the tears as he stood up and said, "So you weren't going to tell me? You were just going to leave me out of nowhere?" With a cold and dull voice, Rayleigh was pained to hear this, as he stood up and said, "I've lived for almost 80 years. Izuku, I've lived long enough. You, on the other hand, have your entire life ahead of you. Don't let the death of some frail old man drag you down. You've got more important things to think about." With a voice that was as calm as possible, Izuku couldn't handle it anymore. Rayleigh's words are what caused him to break. "More important? You're dying, Rayleigh. How can you say that you don't matter? You've been like a father to me," Izuku shouted painfully, as tears ran down his face. Rayleigh could feel his body trembling, along with the pain that came with Izuku's words. "Izuku, he muttered weakly. But nothing more came after that. The green-haired boy looked at him blankly, before wiping his tears and walking away. Rayleigh watched his student walk away, and it left him with pain. He wanted to call for him and apologize, but he couldn't. Deep down he knew that nothing he said could fix this. Izuku was still in pain, while trying to process everything. He was sitting alone on the front porch of the drums, trying to get as far away from everyone as possible. He just couldn't accept it. Rayleigh, the man who trained and believed in him for basically his entire life, his father figure, was going to die. Not only that, but it would happen in less than 3 years. The green-haired boy tried to come to terms with it, but he couldn't. For every time that he thought about it, he was only filled with pain and sadness. "Hey Deku," a feminine voice said, sounding gloomier than it usually did. Izuku was caught off guard by this, but he didn't react the way he usually did as he responded by saying, "Hey Uraraka," with a dull and dead voice. Uraraka could tell that something was wrong. Whenever she snuck up on Izuku like this, he would jump, but now it was as if he was dead inside. The brown-haired girl walked up to Izuku, before sitting down next to him and saying, "I don't need observation Haki to know that something is wrong. Do you want to talk about it?" With a voice that was as calm as possible, Izuku barely reacted to her words, as he remained silent. It was painful to think about, but right now he needed to say something. "It's Rayleigh. He's sick," the green-haired boy said dully. Uraraka's eyes went wide upon hearing this, as she asked, "Will he be okay?" With a voice that was concerned for both Izuku and his mentor, the green-haired boy looked as dead as before, as he answered, "He won't live long enough to see me graduate. And he didn't plan on telling me either." Uraraka was just silent after hearing this, for she couldn't even begin to imagine what Izuku was feeling. The man that had been there and trained him for more than 10 years was going to die. She couldn't imagine what kind of pain he was feeling right now. There was only one thing that she knew. Izuku needed help more than anyone right now. "I'm not going to pretend that I know Rayleigh like you do, but I'm sure that he just wanted to protect you. I'm sure that he didn't want his death to stop you from reaching your goal," Uraraka said, trying to comfort Izuku as much as possible. The green-haired boy just shivered upon hearing this, as he said, "But it's my fault. If I hadn't joined that fight, he wouldn't have been injured. He would be able to keep living." Almost breaking down into tears, Uraraka took a breath to calm herself, before she spoke once more. "All Might and Bakugo would have been hurt, or worse, if you hadn't stepped in. As for Rayleigh getting injured, you don't know what difference it would have made. He's old, So the injury could have just lowered his remaining time by a few years. It was bound to happen eventually. We just have to live with it, she said, sounding as comforting as possible. Izuku stopped shivering upon hearing this. Because it was true, he didn't know how much time Rayleigh would have left if he didn't get injured. Even so, it didn't matter. The silver-haired geezer was just trying to protect him. And he got mad. The green-haired boy took a deep breath. Before he smiled a little and said, "Thanks, Uraraka. I think I feel a little better now. Sorry for bothering you." Sounding more joyful than before, Uraraka just smiled at him. As she said, "Don't worry, it's what friends are for, right?" With her own joyous tone, Izuku giggled a little upon hearing this. And so did Uraraka. The two sat there giggling until they were interrupted by a tired voice that said, "Am I interrupting something here?" The two turned their heads towards the source of the voice and immediately saw that it was Aizawa. The teens quickly stood up and greeted their teacher. But Aizawa could tell that something had happened. He could see that Izuku had been crying and assumed that Uraraka had comforted him. The tired teacher sighed, thinking that Izuku had found out about Rayleigh's condition, before brushing it off by saying, "I came here to say that the both of you have received offers to do a work study. Uraraka, you and Asui have received offers from Ryukyu. Midoriya, you received an offer from Sir Night-Eye. They want to see you tomorrow." With his usual tired voice, both students were shocked to hear this. They didn't just get offers to do work studies, but one of them got an offer from Sir Night-Eye. Aizawa looked at his students in amusement, before walking past them and saying, "Don't forget to make yourselves presentable tomorrow. And good luck." Before walking through the dorm doors, the following day Izuku was taken to Sir Night-Eye's agency by Tagata, who happily conversed with him the entire way. It was during this walk that Izuku revealed that he knew about One for All, shocking Tagata in the process. Some time passed, and the duo eventually made it to their destination. They would be shocked, however, when they opened the door to reveal that Night-Eye was torturing one of his sidekicks. Izuku was only a little shocked to see this, but he wasn't scared. The pain that Rayleigh had put him through on a daily basis is the only thing worth fearing. Night-Eye turned his expression towards Izuku, looking a little cold, before he asked, "Are you Midoriya?" With a calm voice, Izuku could feel Night-Eye's aura, and it was impressive. This man could easily rival most of the top heroes. No wonder he was All Might's sidekick. "Yeah, it's an honor to meet you, Sir Night-Eye," the green-haired boy said calmly. Without taking his eyes off the hero, Night-Eye stood still and silent for a second, until he quickly walked up to Izuku. The green-haired boy was then shocked to see the pro shake his hand while bowing his head and say, "I must thank you. You helped All Might in his final fight. For that you have my gratitude." With an almost excited voice, Izuku didn't know how to react to this. Even Tagata was shocked. He could tell that this was not how the hero usually behaved. "You're welcome, I guess," the green-haired boy said, still weirded out by the situation. Night-Eye got back to his usual manner upon hearing these words from Izuku, before he walked towards his desk and said, "Bring out your form. I would like to sign it immediately." With a calm voice, Izuku did as the man told him. He gave his form to Sir Night-Eye and watched as the hero signed it. Tagata smiled at Izuku, happy that he was on board. Night-Eye didn't waste a single second. He quickly put Izuku to work by informing him about his investigation into a group called the Shy Hasekai, while showing him and Tagata a picture of their leader called Overhaul. The two were then told to go on Tagata's usual patrol, and to avoid confrontation with anyone in the Shy Hasekai. The teens then got into their hero costumes, before leaving to patrol the area. During this patrol, Tagata asked numerous questions to Izuku, such as why he declined One for All, what his master was like, and what his hero name was. Izuku answered all of these questions truthfully, but almost stopped himself when talking about Rayleigh. Tagata noticed that something was wrong, and was going to ask about it if Izuku hadn't been interrupted by someone bumping into him. Izuku turned to face whoever it was, only to be confused. What he saw was a white-haired, red-eyed little girl with bandages all over her. "I'm so sorry, are you all right?" Izuku said with a calm tone. As he reached for her, the girl shivered and grew more terrified, making Izuku stop in his tracks. He could tell that she was scared. He didn't need observation Haki to see that. But what was she so afraid of? More importantly, why was she covered in bandages? The green-haired boy was about to say something, but stopped when he heard a voice call out from the alleyway. "Ari, where have you run off to now?" the voice said, sounding dead and dull. Izuku and Tagata turned towards the voice, only to see what they didn't want to see. The person standing in front of them was none other than Kai Chisaki, also known as Overhaul. Tagata acted immediately, as he quickly pulled Izuku's mask over his face. Before Overhaul spoke again, "Sorry, my daughter is a handful to deal with. I hope that she didn't bother you, heroes," the mask-wearing villain said. Izuku could feel a cold shiver run down his spine after hearing these words. But Tagada seemed to be unaffected as he said, "No worries. It was our fault too," with his usual joyous tone. Izuku was barely listening to anything that the two said, for he was carefully analyzing Overhaul with his observation Haki. This man was nothing but evil. He could even be compared to All for One. The green-haired boy could feel how his spine grew colder, until he was brought back to attention when the masked villain spoke up. "Now then, Eri, we should get going now," the villain said with his cold voice. Izuku could feel how the girl was clinging to him, as if she was afraid of going back to Overhaul. The green-haired boy grew angry upon witnessing this, as he stood up and said, "What are you doing to this little girl?" letting his anger be known. Before raising a Haki-infused arm in front of him, Overhaul's eyes suddenly went wide, as if he had a strange reaction to something in the area. Before frowning and saying, "I see. So you're one of those people. Now the question is, can you only use two, or are you like Shigaraki?" Letting his own anger be shown, Izuku was caught off guard by this response, leaving him with more questions than answers. He then watched as Overhaul raised his hand. Before something strange happened, Izuku's eyes went wide in disbelief, for he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He now had an idea of what Overhaul was talking about, and it only served to shock him down to his core. What the masked villain had done wasn't just raise his hand, he had coated it with Haki. Not only that, he had said something about being similar to Shigaraki. Does that mean that Shigaraki can also use it? And is he somehow connected to the Shai Hasekai? The green-haired boy was petrified. As Overhaul began to reach for his gloves, the villain didn't get to fully remove them. However, before Eri ran out of Izuku's grasp and over to Overhaul's side, Izuku watched as the villain lowered his arm, before walking away with Eri. Once the villain was far away, Izuku fell to his knees and panted heavily. Tagada noticed this and quickly ran over to his side. "Midoriya, are you okay?" Tagada asked, sounding worried as he did. Izuku looked at him in a panic, before he said, "We have to go, we have to," but quickly stopped himself. Izuku didn't know what to do. He couldn't go and get Eri back, and there weren't many people that he could tell what he just heard, other than Rayleigh. There weren't many who knew about Haki, therefore he didn't know how to warn the others. The green-haired boy clenched his fist in frustration, not knowing what to do about this situation. "Well, you're right about one thing. We need to go back and tell Sir what happened," Tagada then said, knocking Izuku out of his episode. The blonde then helped Izuku up to his feet, before they both made their way back to Sir Night-Eye's agency. Upon arriving at the agency, Tagada gave Night-Eye the full rundown of everything that had happened. The hero told them that they did the right thing, and that it would have been bad if they had started a fight. Night-Eye then looked over to Izuku and noticed how quiet he was. The green-haired boy hadn't said a thing since he came back, and he looked like he was holding something back. "Midoriya, is there something that you would like to share?" Night-Eye asked, hoping that the green-haired boy would speak his mind. Izuku remained quiet, however, and avoided making eye contact with anyone. Night-Eye could tell that something was wrong. Izuku knew something that they didn't, but for some reason he couldn't tell them. The hero just grew more suspicious, as he looked towards Tagada and Bubble Girl before saying, "Please, give us some privacy," with a calm voice. They were both confused by this, but they quickly obeyed before leaving the room. Night-Eye turned his expression back to Izuku and said, "We're alone now. You can tell me what's going on, because I already know your little secret." Izuku's eyes went wide upon hearing this. As he looked at Night-Eye, he knew his secret. "Does that mean?" "Yes. I can use Haki. My super advanced observation Haki lets me see into the future. But I can't use armament or conqueror's Haki. So, what is it that you know but won't tell us?" Night-Eye then said. Before Izuku could finish his train of thought, the green-haired boy was stunned to hear all of this, for it was totally unexpected. He knew that there were others who knew and could use Haki, but he never expected All Might's former sidekick to be one of them. Izuku then took a deep breath before he shared what he knew. "It's Overhaul. He can use Haki. Not only that, he mentioned something about me being similar to Shigaraki when he saw me use it. It's not much to go by, but I think that they can use Haki and that they're working together somehow," the green-haired boy said, deciding to not hold anything back. Night-Eye's eyes went wide with shock, for this was something that could potentially change everything. If Overhaul and Shigaraki could use Haki, it only means trouble for everyone, and it could potentially compromise their investigation. "What should we do about it?" Izuku then asked, snapping Night-Eye back to attention. The hero gathered himself before he said, "This information is crucial. And right now we can't really do anything. We have to be careful. Do not tell anyone about this, even if they know about Haki." With the same calm voice, Izuku was confused upon hearing this. As he gave Night Eye a conflicted nod of understanding, Izuku then returned to UA and was immediately bombarded with questions by his classmates. The green-haired boy didn't answer a single one of them, however, and silently walked over to his room. He didn't know what to do. Shigaraki was a dangerous man, and Overhaul could be compared to All for One. The fact that they could Haki only served to terrify him even more. He feared that he wouldn't be able to stop them from hurting him or the people he cared about, which only proceeded to fill him with despair. He just sat there on his lonesome, letting the despair sink deep into him, thinking of what to do. There was someone who probably had an answer, that being Rayleigh, but Night Eye had told him to not tell anyone about this. What was the right move? Should he trust that Night Eye knew what he was doing, or should he talk to Rayleigh? The green-haired boy sat and pondered these questions in his head, until he finally had enough. He let out a wave of Conqueror's Haki, screaming away any weight he was carrying. As he decided that he trusted his master more than All Might's former sidekick, Izuku ran out of his room, before rushing outside to find Rayleigh. After some time he finally found the old man, wandering around on his lonesome. "Rayleigh, wait up. We need to talk," the green-haired boy shouted. As he ran up to the old man, Rayleigh turned around in confusion. Then he was shocked to see Izuku. He quickly shook it off, however, as he responded, "Yeah, we do need to talk. Izuku, I'm sorry. I should have told you early," Teehee silver-haired geezer said, but was interrupted when the green-haired boy shouted, "It's not about that. I've already forgiven you for it. It's about something far more urgent." Sounding more stressed out as time passed, Rayleigh was shocked to see this. Normally he would have been happy to hear his student say those words, but right now he was a little too worried. "What's wrong?" the silver-haired geezer asked, letting his concern be known. Izuku looked at his master with a serious expression, as he took a deep breath before saying, "It's Shigaraki. He can use the Conqueror's spirit." With a quiet voice, Rayleigh's body suddenly went stiff, as his eyes went wide with shock. The old man then trembled slightly, before angrily shouting, "What? Outro. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in the story thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes deep into the facts and lore of a wide variety of anime. It's sure to expand your weeb knowledge for all kinds of series guaranteed. On top of that, we have a third channel called We The Celestials Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel already, but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. Go check it out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action. Secondly, on behalf of We The Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We The Celestials, then I would like to extend out an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being we only accept members 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be. Whether you're a fan or looking to join our band of misfits, we're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video. So, thank you all for watching, and have a great day.